It's hard to believe, but when A Quiet Place came out in 2018, nobody really thought that it was going to amount to much. Sure, we all thought that it would maybe be a decent little horror movie, but boy, oh boy, has this franchise ever turned out to have legs or what, with them now back for a third film in the series, a prequel called A Quiet Place Day One. And here's our review. So in this one, a woman named Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o, finds herself trapped in New York City at the start of the alien invasion depicted in the first two films. Now, a quick word of warning before I get into my review. Paramount has been pretty smart about avoiding any spoilers for this movie so far, so if you want to go in fresh without knowing anything about it other than whether or not it's a good movie, I'll save you the rest of this review. I enjoyed it. It's not quite as good as the first two movies, but it's a solid prequel that shares the same DNA as the other films and delivers a surprisingly affecting human story amid all the carnage. Now, you still with me? Okay. Without getting too much into spoiler territory, Michael Sarnowski's prequel to the John Krasinski movies has a more dramatic bent than the other two films. Anyone who thought this would be the aliens to A Quiet Place 1 and 2's Alien is wrong, as this is perhaps even more performance and character driven than the other two films in the franchise. Sarnowski made a big impact on the indie scene with his incredible Nicolas Cage drama Pig, and A Quiet Place Day One carries the same humanistic vibe. Sure, there are aliens, attacks, and carnage, but at its heart it's a story about two people thrown together by fate. Lupita Nyong'o's Sam and Joseph Quinn's Eric have little to nothing in common, but they both have a lot of empathy, and as the film goes on, their bond becomes surprisingly potent. The characterizations have always made the A Quiet Place movies quite good, with Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, and Noah Jupe in the first film, plus Cillian Murphy in the second film, always excellent. The view of humanity in these movies has always been on the optimistic side, save for one violent encounter in the second film, which carries over to this one. Lupita Nyong'o's Sam is a unique protagonist in that, right as the movie starts, we learn that she's dying of cancer, with her an inpatient at a hospice. She clings to a therapy cat who must be the most well-behaved big-screen feline of all time, on her odyssey with the film being about how, even though she's going to die either way, she somewhat rediscovers her will to live as the movie goes on. The idea is that every second she gets to live is a victory. By comparison, Joseph Quinn's Eddie, a youthful exchange student from England, is her opposite, with his bright future laid out right ahead of him, only to vanish in the blink of an eye as the attacks start. Nyong'o and Quinn, who makes a big impact post Stranger Things, have a good sense of camaraderie, with them realistically heroic as the film goes on, and willing to sacrifice their well-being for the other. While essentially a two-hander, Damon Hunsu returns from the second film, with this showing how he wound up leading an island of survivors in part 2. It's a small part, but it's a solid connection to the other movies. Alex Wolff, who reteams with Sarnowski following Pig, is similarly excellent as Sam's caring and heroic nurse, who is with her as the attacks begin. So if the acting and characters are so good, why then does it fall slightly short of the last two? For me, it's the fact that those films had a certain degree of realism and practicality to them, or as realistic as you can get in a movie about aliens anyway, with this one embracing a bit of magical realism through the use of Sam's cat, who constantly resurfaces and seems supernaturally in tune with its beloved humans. The fact that the pretty cute cat wouldn't bolt the first time someone made a loud noise is almost harder to swallow than the aliens. It should also be noted that the two films were chock full of suspenseful set pieces, and A Quiet Place Day One kinda needs something similar but doesn't have it. There are no huge standout suspense sequences that are going to become fan favorites. However, the New York setting is quite effective, and the film is thoroughly compelling from start to finish, even if it lacks a little of the extra kick-ass Krasinski doled out in the other movies from time to time. It has to be said, though, that A Quiet Place has turned out to be a franchise with better legs than any of us thought, thanks to the smart people behind it and the top-notch talent on screen. While it's the least of the series, it's still quite good and feels like a franchise that could sustain another movie or two, and I give it a pretty decent 7 out of 10.